the holder of the end. In any city, by the way, you like how I continued the whole dramatic light effect, just the whole spotlight from one of my lights as opposed to my main light over there, because you can totally see it whenever I gesture over there. Yeah, I think that was cool. I liked how last video worked out with the shadowing and everything. It was more intimate. Yeah, I like the darkness too. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house that you can get yourself into. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls himself the holder of the end. Should a look of childlike fear come over the worker's face, you will then be taken to a cell in the building. It will be in a deep, hidden section of the building. All you will hear is the sound of someone talking to themselves echo the halls. It is in a language that you will not understand, but your very soul will feel unspeakable fear. Should the talking stop at any time, stop and quickly say aloud, "I'm just passing through. I wish to talk." If you still hear silence, flee. Leave. Do not stop for anything. Do not go home. Don't stay at an inn. Just keep moving. Sleep where your body drops. You will know in the morning if you've escaped successfully. If the voice in the hall comes back after you utter those words, continue on. Upon reaching the cell, all you will see is a windowless room with a person in the corner, speaking an unknown language and cradling something. The person will only respond to one question. What happens when they all come together? The person will then stare into your eyes and answer your question in horrifying detail. Many go mad in that very cell. Some disappear soon after the meeting. A few in their lives. But most do the worst thing and look upon the object in the person's hands. You will want to as well. Be warned that if you do, your death will be one of cruelty and unrelenting horror. Your death will be in the room by that person's hands. This object is one of 2,538. They must never come together. The next story that I'm going to be reading is called Blood-Soaked Dress. For weeks, I had been plagued by horrible nightmares, each one more graphic and clear than the next. All the same, they were of me, running through the woods, frantically searching for something or someone, and then coming upon a young girl, about 7 or so, on the ground, dead. Her skin would be cold to the touch, her gorgeous white Sunday dress stained with blood, and her throat ripped open. I would always walk forward and feel for some kind of a glimmer of life, a breath, a faint heartbeat, and always found none. Then giving up, I'd turn to leave. A small, frightened, tremulous voice would call out for me to stop. "Please," it would say in a scared, yet perfect, British accent, unlike mine. "Help me." I'm just going to read that normally. "It hurts, Mother. Please, find me. Help." Whenever I'd turn around, the little girl and her glazed, dead, sad eyes would be staring at me, and she'd be sitting up, crying, her hand reaching out. Well, a couple of months after the first dream, I went to let my dog out. Now, she's a small Pekingese Pomeranian mix, so she's not too aggressive, I guess. Well, this tiny, harmless dog let loose a growl that would frighten the worst of any hardened criminal before running out into the woods out back. I took after her, shouting, "Come back!" She didn't come back, so I forced myself to look for her, even though darkness was falling. After about 2 hours, I finally sat down and rested. My eyes started to droop, just as I heard whimpering. Jolting up, I saw a little girl holding my dog. She was staring at me with the strangest look, like she didn't know what I was. and if I was bad. "I found your puppy, ma'am," she said in a quiet, scared voice. Her accent triggered a strange feeling of déjà vu. She sounded like she was from England. I reached my hands out to her, giving her a relieved smile. "Thank you." When she handed me the dog, I stood up and looked her over. "Do you live around here?" At her nod, I asked. "Do you know how to get home?" She nodded once more, and then began to fiddle with her dress. That was when I noticed that it was clean, a clean white formal dress. A little voice nagged at me, saying that I knew her from somewhere, that I'd seen this before. I ignored it. Just then, the dog heard my mother's whistle and leapt from my arms. At least now I knew she was going home. I turned to thank the little girl, but she was gone. I sighed and turned to leave. That was when I heard small cries coming from in front of me. "Mother, Mother, help me, please. My neck hurts so much. Someone, please find me." My mind reeled, and my dreams flooded back. I pushed back a few branches and saw the little girl again. Her back was turned to me, but I knew something was off. Her dress, once white as the moonlight pouring onto it, was now dull, tattered, and dirty. Her skin, once peachy, was now a bluish-white color. I gasped. There was no way. She probably fell, and the light was hitting her wrong. Right? I stepped forward and put my hand on her shoulder. It didn't seem very solid, but it was icy cold. She turned. Blood soaked her beautiful dress, falling from a horrendous gash in her neck. She looked up at me with her glazed, dead eyes. "It hurts so much," was all she said, before, like magic, she just disappeared. To this day, I still see flashes of white coming from in between the trees in the middle of the night. I just hope that someday I can find a way to help the little girl. Fuck, that was depressing. Shit. Are you depressed? You might not be scared or creeped out so much as depressed. Sad. I'm sad, Grimith. You're a terrible entertainer. Why would you be ruffling if you were entertaining? Shut up, asshole. I'm from the internet. Serious business. Can you take me seriously? I don't know how this all looks now. Some of the gel still isn't dry, but the rest of it, I think my spikes failed. Let me tell you that much. Hymn. As I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. Should I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. By your side through night and day, never shall I turn away. Should they take my only home, ferry me to kingdom come. Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. Father Andrew knelt in the confessional and clutched the two halves of a golden cross strung around his neck, as if protecting a newborn baby. They glinted happily in the dim light, and he smiled down at them. Before him, the confessional window slid open. How long has it been since he, a small-town priest, had been to an honest Catholic confessional? What is that brings you here, my son? Father Albert looked up through the screen at his fellow clergyman and swallowed his words like a lump of bitter fruit. He didn't know why he came to confess. He only knew that he had to say what was on his mind. He stroked his cross absent-mindedly, his smile failing as whispering words filtered through his ears. I think that God is dying. Father Albert steered through the city streets, staring blankly at the lines whizzing by below him. The golden cross pieces clinked around his neck, the noises swimming through the air and weaving him a story. Find the others, it said. God wanted him to find the others. Or else. If he didn't find the others, he couldn't save God. Wife and son had wanted him to get rid of it, but they didn't hear God's call. Forbid that they might be blasphemers. He tried to get them to hear the words that he heard, the call of the Lord through the sacred cross, but they heard not. They only continued to cry against him. Words wouldn't silence them. Prayers wouldn't silence them. Only the cross would silence them. Half an hour ago, they stopped crying against him, and they would cease their blasphemous words forever. He absent-mindedly wiped a fleck of blood, still remaining on one of the pieces. Lights flashed in his rearview mirror, and he let his eyes flick to and I think that's a typo in the story. And he let his eyes flick from the mirror and back stuff. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He kept driving. The sirens kept going. The lights kept flashing. They doled out the glinting golden light of the cross. He became annoyed. When he pulled over, the police officer walked to his window in a professional manner. Father Andrew's lip curled in disgust. How high and mighty he held himself, but he was not above God. He was not above God's men. What right had he to tell him that the world of God was wrong? He turned his eyes from the guiding light, like so many others. So many sinners. Only he heard the voice. Can I get your license and registration? Father Albert gave him 2 bullets in the right eye. He hardly noticed the gear shift click, only that he was speeding down the highway again. He swerved through the lanes, dodging traffic, but it felt smooth to him, natural, like a salmon swimming upstream. He dodged the obstacles to reach his goal. The voice of God called out to him. They never found him. He sped down a rural road and grinded to a halt on dead-end gravel. He stepped out the car and looked up at the sight before him. The structure was tall, much taller than the trees. The rotating ivory arms scraped the blue sky far above him. 3 of the turbines stood before him, and he stared up in awe. They spun slowly and silently, hypnotizingly. They couldn't keep him from his mission. Wife, son, police. They did not understand the will of God. God was dying. He needed help. The voice in the cross was fading. He clung to it tighter. He must coax the voice back. He would help as much as possible. He bent over and cuddled it, whispering to it and praying to it. Soon, he said, soon will the kingdom of God be wealthy again. Soon the goodness of God will be everywhere. He looked back up, and the sky was red. No, he murmured, reaching up into the sky. Don't bleed, Lord. Don't bleed. It's not too late. His eyes moved to the black sun behind him. Was he too late? Had God blown his brains out? Was it over? The cross quivered in his hands, as if it were scared. He looked back down at it again, and his eyes widened. He wasn't dead. He was scared. The enemies of God were clawing at the doorstep. The armies of Satan had come. The wind turbines screeched behind him, and he turned to see that the blades were no longer ivory. They were blotched with black. Tar clung to the blades and weighed down the wings that continued to try and claw at the sky. The windmill tried to reach up to God, but the tar built and built until it slowed and stopped. The great machine ceased as the black substance clogged the turbine and slapped to the ground below. The forms rose from the tar and turned towards Father Albert, who took a few steps backward and raised his gun. He didn't know if it would work against the spawn of the devil, but he must defend the cross. He fired 3 times with his antique revolver, but it seemed to only make the demon madder. It advanced on him and brandished long claws. He raised the cross pieces and placed them together. "In the name of the Lord, I command you to..." He couldn't finish his command due to a punctured lung. The tar creature withdrew the claws, and in one swipe severed the chain that bound the cross pieces. They fell away, as did Father Albert. The cross fell into the tar's grasp, and Father Albert fell to the ground beside his car. He reached out. The tar was already moving away. Others like it lurked nearby, waiting as they brought the object back. Albert shuddered and stammered as they took the voice of God from him. They had taken God from him. God was dead. That, like so much else, had been taken from him. His friends, his family, his following, his freedom, his sanity, it had all been taken from him. He knew he took his family's lives in cold blood. He suddenly knew it, and for the first time that he could remember, emotion flooded him. He felt cold, and he felt alone. The gun rested in his hand, with one shot remaining. He held it to his temple, and with the one remaining bullet, he ventured away once more, seeking his Lord. That exactly wasn't very cheerful either, huh, folks? Okay, one more story. One more. I don't know how long I've been recording. Perhaps I should have set up a timer. Fuck that. Holder of Legion. In any country's capital city, go to the building where the country's leader works. When inside, locate the visitor's desk and ask to visit someone who calls himself the Holder of Legion. The worker's expression will freeze, and he will ask you to leave. Do not obey. Instead, keep asking about once a minute. After some time, maybe minutes, maybe hours, the worker will finally give in. By this time, he will be close to crying, probably even collapsing due to the pressure you're putting onto him by the mere mentioning of this holder's name. Depressed, he will rise and take you into a part of the building that no one else even seems to notice exists. It looks exactly like the rest of the Capitol would in 1,000 years. The walls are cracked and sagging. The support pillars are buckled and leaning dangerously. The paint is faded and almost completely peeled off the walls. The pictures are torn, faded, and hanging askew, and the carpet underfoot is rotted and full of bugs. You will be taken deep into these hallways, deep down below the surface. The worker will take you to a door further below than any other in the building, possibly even 100 meters below the basement. This is where your last chance to turn back is. Should you decide to go into this door, your fate will be sealed, and there will be no chance of ever leaving alive. Turn back if you want to find other objects. If not, well then, ask the worker to unlock the door. He will beg you to leave, tears flowing over his cheeks, and he will scream at you if badgered enough. But he should give in if you are determined. He will open the door. Enter, and it will be closed behind you and locked. Now there is no turning back, and no matter what you do, you will eventually die. The beings creeping in the shadows of the room have already begun to leech your life from your body, and you will feel older with every second. Run as fast as you can to the door on the other side of the room and enter it. The beings here are simply minor demons, not even capable of scaring the smallest child. What? Follow the red path you see, and you will soon reach a wooden door. I'm just saying, minor demon probably would scare me, and I'm not a minor child. What? Knock thrice. If you are lucky, someone will ask you to stay where you are. Your death, shut up stomach, will be a quick one. Should he instead tell you to enter, do so. Your feelings do not matter. Nothing matters after you have entered this room. Here, you will see them, all behind a kind of force field that repels anything that gets too close. You will see 2,000 of them, precisely 2,000, or rather, 1,999. The last of them is held by the person in the middle of the room, but you will also see things that cannot be described by human words, things that show that this very room could be a tiny part of hell, things that might drive you mad if you look at them for too long. Excuse me. Walk closer to the one in the middle. Him, her, it. It does not matter what the being there is. Ask him, why do you hide them? He will answer you. He will tell you how he got his first one, and then proceeded to look for all those others you see around you. The tale might drive you mad. It might kill you. It could do anything to you. But in the case that nothing happens, he will ask you to take his object. It is attached to his chest, but do not even come close to it. Tell him the following: I came to see, not to touch. You may now let me leave. My cell phone's on low battery. Don't mind that. He will then laugh. He will laugh even worse than the devil, more evil than anything in the world. He will then say a simple sentence: your fate is sealed. The object on his chest will begin to glow, and you will feel pain, then madness, and finally death. You have 3 choices here. One is to accept your fate and descend to the lowest level of hell for eternity. The second is to kill him, promptly and speedily, but to do so is to take his place as the holder of Legion, thus rendering your entire quest worthless. The third is to produce the first object. If you do, he will scream and attempt to attack you. Do not worry. He can't get past the object. Eventually he will begin to melt as he dashes himself against the force field generated by the symbol of madness you hold in your hands. Do not open your eyes until no more sound is heard. Toss the first object away and look where the thing once stood. A single gigantic diamond lays twinkling on the floor. Grab it. It will embed yourself in your chest, becoming part of you as much as your heart or your brain. You are now the final object of the 2,538. Bring them together and show us your smile. Melodramatic enough for you children? I thought so. I hadn't had prepared reading, and all that stuff's much better when memorized, so take that as you will. But before we go, I did say that was the last story. I do have something up here that I would like to share. It'll brighten the mood, so to speak, and if none of you have ever heard of Lewis Carroll, you're going to shoot yourselves in the face. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome rafts outgrabe. Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jubjub bird and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the Maxome foe he sought. So rested he by the tum-tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the Jabberwock with eyes of flame came whiffling through the tulgey wood, and burbled as it came. 1, 2, 1, 2, and through the vorpal blade went snicker-snack. He left it dead, and with its head he went galumphing back. And hast thou slain the Jabberwock? Come to my arms, my beamish boy. Oh, frabjous day! Callooh, callay! He chortled in his joy. 'Twas brillig, and the slithy toves did gyre and gimble in the wabe. All mimsy were the borogoves, and the mome rafts outgrabe. Jabberwocking by Lewis Carroll. Alright, folks. That takes care of story time with Papa Grimm today. I guess guess I could do the Daggerfall narration thing. Excuse the gloom, but none may know of this meeting. I already read enough. That was fun, everybody. I hope you had fun, too. All 4 of you who are still watching. It was like a 4-barreled revolver right there. I just blew my mind. Yeah. Hope you folks are continuing to get your minds fucked by all the videos I put in the subscription box. As always, feel free to comment and ruffles all over them. Because, since I'm doing my hobby and I'm spending time uploading videos, why don't you enjoy them? Oh, shit. I think a snap. Oh, down tiptoe through the tulips by the window. I won't do my incredibly insane, creepy laugh this time. That's in the last video. You go watch that. Some of you still probably haven't slept since then. I'm not sorry. I didn't warn you, but I'm still not sorry.